Ever not feel good enough? Me too. So let's talk about it.
Welcome to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, a place for the strong, sensitive, spiritual seeker to recognize the perfection of your human journey as a pathway to spiritual worlds through proven and grounded frameworks that support you to live in the wholeness you already are. For over the past 2 decades, I have supported people from all around the world, as well as Fortune 500 companies, to dissolve the divisions within them and live with greater empowerment and love. This podcast is an exploration of the paradoxes that befuddle us as we live our lives being both human and divine. Together, you and I, along with other experts, will navigate integrating psychology and spirituality, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the darkness and the light, to create greater sacred union from within. I believe through your remembering that you are innately divine, that you will allow yourself to more openly shine. So let's get to it, because your unique light is needed more than ever.
Welcome to I'm Perfectly Divine podcast. Today, we're talking about that feeling of I am not good enough. And last week, I shared with you how this is a brand new season. This is a season about challenging ourselves in the mess. And I'm uncertain about the rest, where the divine wants to take this. And now I'm getting a greater picture that the divine just wants me to share my mess, the messy ways that the muck can still come up for me, and how I'm holding it with love so that we can practice this together. And so that we can recognize that as we go into this phase of remembering our truth, remembering the love that we are, it doesn't mean that we don't ever forget. And I think what's really coming forward is the importance of sharing that the ego voice is still there, that we all get to still be human. We're still going to have those human tendencies, but what are we going to do with them? So I had my first episode and I shared with you a little bit about the voice that I was having in that moment, like, oh my gosh, you said enough already. And then right afterwards, the ego came in and was like, that's not good enough. And before, that would have really put me in a spin, right? I'm like, that's not good enough. And immediately, what came forward for me was to speak back to that and say, for who? For what? I'm not good enough. For who? For what? And to begin to, well, not begin, but to deepen the questioning of the ego and the way it wants to shame us for not being some standard that it thinks that we need to be in order to receive love. And so I think underneath everything that we feel shame about, and in my book, Feel Every Emotion is Love, I think you can see it right there it is. I have my Hall of Fame shame themes, and I list out all the ways that shame can show up in our inner dialogues, in our ego storylines that we have. But I think it really boils down to really not feeling good enough. And rather than challenging it, I guess, is where I'm more leaning into how can I receive I'm not good enough? How can I receive it and what it's trying to tell me? And what I am understanding from that message, where there's a part of me that is seeking, wanting to be good enough, what's underneath that? And what's underneath that is me trying to prove myself to you. And here I say in every podcast, there's nothing to prove, just to remember. And obviously, I say that because that's something I need to continue to remember, right? Because our ego wants us to prove ourselves to be enough, to be a certain standard that the ego has deemed from our childhood of what will make us enough in order to be loved. And this is very much the hero's journey, is that we we develop these storylines and then we are working to overcome that so that we know the love that we are. But we often do that by proving ourselves in some way in the external. I know the love that I am because I got this award, or I'm this successful, or I've married the love of my life. And whenever we do that, what we'll find in the hero's journey is that it's temporary, meaning it will give yourself that little bit of boost of like, yeah, I feel more confident now. I've got the thing. But the thing with the ego is that it's always looking for the next thing because deep inside, you haven't proved anything to yourself. And so this whole notion of I'm not good enough is really where shame is coming through, the trigger is coming through to help us to look inside of what we want underneath that sense of being good enough to another. And for me, it's this understanding that I want to be received by you, I want to be validated by you. And it's that's our humanness that wants that. Um, Again, that's the hero's journey, but you can kind of feel the ick factor in that, right? Because when we do that, and it's very unconscious, but when we do that, that's how we twist and contort and morph ourselves into something that we're not. Because the ego says, you've got to be different in this way in order to show up as someone that will be loved, as a leader, as a good mom, as a good daughter, and so, or a good son, a good parent, a good father, whatever. And so it starts to manipulate us rather than for us to validate and receive ourselves. And so, where do I want to go with this? There's a couple ways I want to go with it. So there's a couple stories running through my head. One story um, is to recognize that it just doesn't work that way. And so our egos can trick us to believe like if and this is kind of how we learn through school, right? Like if I get all the good grades and I do the volunteer work and whatever, then I'll get into college. And then when I get into college and work hard there, then I'll get the good internships and then I'll get the good job. And we're always like striving for the next thing. And it's never ending. And this is part of the reason why we are seeing younger and younger people struggle with their mental health, because not that there's anything wrong with their mental health is saying for their health they don't want to play this game. They recognize a part of their innate wisdom recognizes you never win at this game. And yet we have society telling us this is the game you got to play. This is the only way to happiness, safety, fulfillment. And there's that word again, safety. And so, again, the hero's journey is very much about how do I acquire some level of safety, being validated, being loved by another, having success. And we do have to take care of our human selves. We need money to provide for ourselves and our families. So it's not either or, but it's understanding that the heroine's journey is saying we're no longer going to rely on trying to receive from the external, and it's going to have to come in a completely different way where it's radical self-trust. And through that radical self-trust is how you will gain the self-worth to know you are enough despite whatever the external is doing with who you are. Because the truth is that I am both not enough and I am more than enough. So for someone that does not resonate with me, I'm not enough for them. That's totally cool because someone else will be enough for them of meeting them exactly where they're meant to be, right? And at the same time, I am perfectly enough for someone who is on this path that I was describing last time, where you're in the muck and you don't want to do it alone. You want someone that understands the muck. You want someone that understands the heroine's journey, and is going to challenge you while you're in the chrysalis to pump those, put blood in those wings so that you're strong enough as you emerge. And this is what I do to myself. So I wouldn't ask anything of you that I'm not doing for myself. And so the other story that this leads me to, those of you who we've been connected for a long time, you've heard this story. It's a good story, so I'll share it again, because some of you may have never heard it. For so much of my dating journey before I was married was this sense of I'm not enough. I did not feel lovable as I was. There was a time, I would say my first love, I felt lovable for who I was. And then I, it was a young love, and I, I wanted to experience more relationships. And so I broke off that relationship. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I lost the love of my life at the time, right? And that brought me on this whole journey of not feeling lovable and love. I was given a love that felt very easy, that where I felt loved for who I was, and then I quote unquote ruined it. And then I struggled to find another relationship. And when I kept getting the external feedback of um, being rejected, then my ego started creating stories about, I'm not attractive enough. I'm not loving enough. I'm not nice enough. And then I started to twist and contort and be all these things to try to be enough to someone else. And so in my next relationship, I was like, I'm going to get this right. I am going to be the perfect partner. And I got engaged to someone who um, met all the things on the checklist that I had of what my idea of a perfect partner would be. And we banged heads like no other. Like I just felt like we were constantly in a fight. I felt like he just did not get me. And I'm sure I did not get him, right? So this is not to make him a bad person. He's a lovely person. But we were just bumping heads. And I so wanted to be married to have proof that I was indeed lovable. And thank goodness that we got in some sort of fight and drinking was involved. And we were in our 20s. And I think I threw the ring at him, and like that was kind of it. Like it was just, I don't know. We had a couple of those dramatic moments. It was messy, right? But one of them, it was like finally the end. Like I caught him lying about something, stupid, and I was just like, this isn't going to work. And so we had like the wedding place picked out. We had the caterer. There were things that needed to be canceled. I mean, we announced that this wedding was going to happen. And it was my nightmare that I had to announce to everyone that this wedding was canceled because to me, what my ego was telling me that I am announcing, I have now specific proof, specific external proof. I am not lovable. I am announcing I am not lovable. And then I got really pissed at God. Um, at the time, I was Catholic. And I got on my knees and I had it out with God. I was like, basically, like, how dare you? Um, because I have been someone who's been very spiritual from a young age, and I was very much devoted as a Catholic. And so I just felt wronged. Like I was just pissed. And and so a couple things with that story is, first of all, I mean, me doing this, I thought a lightning bolt was going to hit me and I was going to die. The fact that I was mad at God. And what I will tell you is that that has been one of the turning points in my relationship with the divine, because it shifted from a relationship where I was like praying to something, in the heavens, to me having such a personal relationship with the divine. And I don't recommend just getting mad at the divine for the heck of it. This was just like, this is what was so true to me in that moment. I was just so, so incredibly hurt. And so it was my way of turning to the divine in a very personal way, and basically saying, how could you? And I was devastated. I want to say, I don't know, for sure a few days. But this is what I mean. Like in the hero's journey, we have these dark nights of the soul, but they kind of go quickly because, like, I want to say, maybe 3 days, maybe a week at most, something came from that where I was like, oh, hell no, and no more. Like this is why I always bring together the divine with our emotional growth. I believe it's been like that since millennia. And it wasn't until science wanted to try to prove itself that it tried to separate itself from spirituality when it comes to our psychology. If you want to learn more about that, I will link that to like season one. I have a podcast on that. But anyways, there was a divine intercession, because through that, I mean, I was in the depths of I am not enough. I am unlovable. And through that moment with the divine, and in a few days, I was like, oh, hell no, I have got this completely mixed up. The truth of the matter is that I am more than enough. And I own that now. And someone now has to show to me that they are enough for me, that they can be the love that I need them to be in order to be with me. And the miracle in that story is 3 weeks later, I met my now husband, who is like that. He is like, I want to say soulmate, but it's like beyond soulmate. It's just, he is my divine partner. And we were meant to be on this journey together. And I could not have been aligned with him in that old version of me that, 3 weeks earlier, 4 weeks earlier, was completely different, was desperate and scrapping for love and to be enough. And so we must claim who we are and know it, despite all our imperfections, before whatever we desire can be mirrored back to us. And it can happen like in a blink of an eye. It can happen so quickly. I mean, for years, I was struggling, first of all, with no one wanted to date me. So then when finally I found someone that wanted to date me and met the checklist, I was like, hell yeah. And let's lock this in and get married, even though it wasn't the right person for me. All of that to facing in a very painful way, like, okay, here's the proof. I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. And there's something about being in that and claiming it. It's just like the only way through is to go into it. And I went in, and through the support of the divine, a miracle happened where that pain led me to remember the love that I am. And so it shows up here. It shows up in, how many years later, where there's a part of me that wants to bend and contort to be some version that my ego says, well, this is what someone who teaches about emotions and spirituality should should have together, should represent. And it's that's not the truth of who I am. And I don't think it's necessarily helpful. I would rather be in our humanness of knowing that space that says, I'm not enough. And I can hold it and you can hold it and just see it and say, yeah, I see that part of me. I'm not trying to change that part of me because that part of me is anchoring in more of the remembrance of the love I am. So see, this is what I mean, that we get to challenge ourselves when a trigger comes through and we hear that little voice. It's an opportunity. And this is who I want to speak to, are people that are like, yes, take me into the growth, take me into the challenge of this. I'm ready. And only you can decide. And I promise you, I have no judgment if you're not ready, because there have been times where I have not been ready. I'm like, nope, leave me alone. I'm not ready. And again, that is gnosis. That is knowing and loving yourself where you're at. Um, and when you're ready, that we can see that and say, ah, and I want to share that. I want you to be a part of this with me, because together, when we call out our ego and instead of buying into it and listening to that voice and wondering, what should I do different and da la 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 and whatever, that we could say, for who? Because hopefully it's all for the love of who you are. It's all for you. That you are living this life, being the expression of love that you came here to be, knowing that's enough. That's more than enough for whoever's meant to be in your life. I hope you know that. I hope you remember that. It's not in any perceived way of that our ego tells us. It's just you and I in the muck, remembering, not proving. Of course, I laugh because that's what I caught myself doing. And like I said, it's funny, right? Like it's ironic and not that I am always wanting us to remember that there's nothing to prove, just to remember, because that is always the message I need for myself. So let's receive ourselves as we are. Let's receive ourselves for the part of ourselves that perceive ourselves as less than, and know that that's a gateway of love. Let's see the self that blames another, judges another, gets triggered by another. That is all of our humanity, and it is exactly the way in to remembering ourselves, to remembering our truth, and to unleashing the shackles that the ego tries to put on us to make us be something more fitting. I don't know who it's fitting for or what, but it's not, it's just, it won't enliven you. And at this stage of the game, when we go into the heroine's journey and we start to emerge from that in divine union, it's more it's willing to let go of the external because the internal alivens us. So I just want to check in and see if there's more that wants to be shared about that. Yeah, just that it is a practice of self-trust, and that from that trust, I think things will be less orderly, But to me, that's kind of where the magic comes in. To me, that's where the unknown, the unpredictable happens, and that's part of the fun of life. And so I think our ego has really done a number on us, especially for those of you who have struggled with anxiety, because anxiety comes from trying to control what we can't, what we're not meant to. And that we're missing something when we're missing a part of our truth, a part of ourselves when we don't practice the skill of surrendering, the skill of being in the unknown. And that there is so much love in the messiness. There's so much love in the dissolvement of our egos to our expression of the essence that we came here to be. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there because it's really, it's a gift to be able to share Not Good Enough and be side by side with you with it, knowing that I don't have to be anything more or less than I am. I am the I am that I am. You are the I am that you are. And that I am place, when we claim that for ourselves, that I know who I am and I know the love that I am, regardless of the external, regardless of internal dialogue that wants to shame us. That the more we practice, I know that I am that I am, and I know that is love. The more that we can live more freely, more expansively, and more into the life's journey and path that was uniquely designed for you. So thank you for being with me as we explore I am not good enough. And until next time, Michelle, please remember there's nothing to prove, just to remember. Hope you remember that as well.
I am so honored you have joined me today. If you enjoyed the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, subscribe so you don't miss any of our power-filled episodes. Also, if you know another who is strong, sensitive, and spiritual and wants to dive deeper into emotions and ancient wisdom so they too can create profound peace and fulfillment from within, please share this podcast. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.